And can we discuss what happens if you do get a rejecting response from loved ones?
I hadn't told my parents until 3.5 years ago, and they were in their 80s. And I went to their house and I told my mom, and my mom had always been the kind of person who had said, "You're going to be a general authority someday. You're going to be a general authority. You got to be good. You're going to be a general authority." And
no pressure, but
and my dad was just absent a lot. And when I told them, my mother just said nothing. My dad said, "It's Satan's work. It's Satan's work. It's Satan's work. It's Satan's work." And he probably repeated it 10 times. And I then said, I'm gonna leave you with this, and then I'll come back. and I did. 2 weeks later, my dad came to me, and he said, "Nobody taught me how to be a good father." And my mother said, "You know, there's not very many general authorities that know very much about this kind of stuff."
Oh, you kind of came full circle there. Thank you, Dale. David.
So the first person that I told that wasn't like a priesthood leader, well, I guess it was, I got completely and totally rejected. The person never, ever talked to me again and went so far as to transfer their records so they would never have to see me again. And that was honestly a really difficult thing for me, because I had felt spiritually prompted to tell this person, and spiritually prompted that it would help improve my relationship and help me to find someone who could help me and give me the support that I felt that I needed. And that was honestly really hard. But at the same time, I look back, and that experience really did give me what I needed, because it taught me that I needed to turn to God for the support and the esteem that I had been looking for outside of myself. I needed to be willing to understand and believe in myself, and willing to turn to God and let Him love me and let Him be the friend that I was looking for elsewhere. When I told my parents, it was years after that, and my dad's response was, "I think you need to kiss more girls." And immediately after, I'm like, okay, I have one suggestion for you. Don't give me like blanket advice that you would give to any normal guy. Before you give me advice, pray about it. And in the years since, my parents have learned a lot about what it means to have same-gender attraction. They've become huge allies in understanding me and in helping other people in the community, developing support. And I think that no matter who you are and no matter where you are, I think that you should tell your parents. Because your parents are one of the few people in the world who can actually call down the blessings of heaven and receive revelation for you, just like your priesthood leaders. And they have the ability to be there in your life. And even if they're not there right now, this might be the thing that can help them and that can be the key to unlock your relationship. I think that my relationship with my dad, since I shared that with him, has improved far more than it has from any other thing.
I'm going to jump in for a moment. That is work. I want to add, whomever you tell, if the reaction is bad, don't make that turn you away from telling people who can help. Tell somebody else. And be prayerful, as has been mentioned here again and again. Be prayerful so you can be led to people who will respond better, who will be supportive, who can help, while those who didn't respond well perhaps can be worked on and softened in the process as well eventually. Ben, what's your comment?
Really quickly, there's a whole organization here that is like built in to be supportive and loving and helpful and understanding. So the organizations like North Star and people who are tell somebody who you know knows that it's going to be okay, and then have them help you to tell whoever if that's what you need. So.
And thank you, Ben.
I think so. This question, I think, it's a huge deal. I mean, for that person, this is so significant in their life. It is a huge deal. And so, for me, I waited till after I had acted out on my feelings, and I regret that. I wish I would have brought my family in sooner. But the thing is I know so many people who have had the worst family rejection, and it's destroyed them. So I think a lot of what needs to be said is to family members. This is the same child that you had before. They're just letting you into their lives a little bit more. And you still need to love them. You still need to understand them. And for me, I'm lucky I have 7 of my family members here supporting me today. And I think that's how it should be, not only for homosexuality, but for every issue. We're in a family to support each other.
Thank you so much.
I just want to comment on this too, because I agree it's a huge deal. And over my 25 years, I have been rejected by a whole lot of people, and I have been accepted by a whole lot of people. And you just have to keep trying. And because I've been involved with this for 25 years, I still get rejected by my mother. You know, she's still like, I tell her where I'm going up for this conference, and she kind of rolls her eyes. But you know what? She's growing spiritually. And the other thing I want to say is a rejection from someone else is their issue. It's not yours. And you take it internally, and it's that they have a problem and that they don't understand the atonement and that they're not accepting. And you need to remember that. And the other thing you need to remember is when something like that happens with my mom, and we see these authority figures and we kind of tie them in with heavenly parents, I just think of my heavenly mother. And I know how grateful my heavenly parents are that I'm here helping. So when my mom rolls her eyes at me, I can just say a prayer, and I know that those who really are in charge are grateful and accepting.
In Romans chapter 8, you may be familiar with the scripture that says, "If God be for us, who can be against us?" Thanks for sharing that, Laurie. Here's a question from an ecclesiastical leader who says he's been cautioned against referring people to North Star and Evergreen and similar groups because some predators frequent these organizations. Please advise. Come on, Ty, you got to say something
I
about
helped
that.
found North Star. I mean, it's always wise to be cautious. And I know that these organizations, and this is not just true for North Star, I know this is true for other organizations, they do our very, very best to keep those atmospheres safe. And that's all that we can do.
That's right.
And I would say those experiences that predators frequent, I would say, is an
exaggeration.
That's not true. But have there been instances in the past where that's happened? Yes, unfortunately. And we do everything that we can to take care of that. But I think everybody has to take every resource cautious, because the good that resources do give is always going to far exceed any unfortunate or negative aspects or experiences that may happen. And so going into any resource cautious, and looking for the good and what resources are available, what can this offer me in various forms. And we have online forums, which is always a little bit more risky, and we have live things like spouses retreats and couples things and that kind of thing, where those are much safer, much more controlled and filtered. So I think it's always going to be difficult, but I would say some of the things that saved me and blessed me most were the resources that were out there. And so I would never caution against those just because there's the possibility that something might happen. Ben, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm not a part of any group, and that's a personal choice, but I wouldn't say that I'm against them. Like I said, I feel like I'm lucky because I have a family that's who I turn to for support, but there's people that don't have that. That's right. So I think that people who are willing to figure it out and make a place for people to come to, it's very commendable. It's a wonderful thing, because if you don't have some type of resource to turn to and you're feeling lonely and confused, there's a lot of other alternatives out there that are going to lead you into a far different path.
Dale.
We hold a fire. We used to hold a fireside every month. We now hold a fireside up in the northern North Ogden area once every 3 months. That's no different than any other North Star activity. It can still be an opportunity if somebody is out there trying, searching, looking, trying to be a predator. You can find them there too. And you can find them in young single adult activities, and you can find them in other church activities. There's always going to be those kind of people who are going to be there, but you do everything in your power to make sure that you keep things safe.
And I might get in trouble for saying this, but my warrior just kicked in for a moment from that question, and I got triggered to the point of saying, I would like to respond to that leader and look at your own fear. Are you afraid? Because these groups are incredible. Yes, there are some, but these groups are so powerful, so healing. We need those groups. We need those new men into this community to support, to help them heal, and to help them. So I would just invite you to look at that fear of your own and maybe not project that onto everybody else that comes in and talks with you.
Thank you. Kevin's going to wrap this
real
up.
Quick. When I heard you say that, I felt like it's the same kind of logic of knowing a man in your ward who experiences same-sex attraction and deciding to keep them in primary away from the elders because you're afraid they might fall into some kind of inappropriate behavior with them. These men need other men. They need to relate with them. And yes, there's risky things out there. And you know what? Sometimes going down the wrong road helps you know for certainty what the right road is. Just as the latest Mormon message has said by Elder Holland.
Yeah, beautifully said. Thank you, Kevin. There are many, many, many questions that are coming in the nature of how people can help. People who personally don't experience same-gender attraction or same-sex attraction but want to help. And then within that context, if I can find the right question, the question is often asked, how can you be supportive while not going too far in areas that may compromise your own beliefs with family members or friends who aren't living according to temple standards?
I want to talk on that. I think that it's, I think the biggest mistake that people make is that, and it's an honest mistake because people really, in desiring to be a good member of the church and desiring to be a good parent who is suggesting to, and who's trying to lead your child down the right path and is trying to always keep that, that testimony alive in them, that there's a tendency to want to reiterate that all the time. And I think that you could stop saying right now that you don't approve of the gay lifestyle or you don't approve of acting on those feelings, and they're going to know that you don't approve for the rest of their life. They're going to see you going to church, and they're going to see you making those choices continually, and so they're going to know without you saying that you don't approve of these certain things. And so the mistake that I think that a lot of people make is is always sharing the message that I love you, but with a qualifier of I love you, but I don't approve of that lifestyle, or I love you, but I don't approve of these actions. And they know that part. What they sometimes forget is that you love them because you're qualifying that love all the time with saying that that this is holding me back from loving you all the way. And so I think that if you can just express love over and over and over again, you don't need to give the qualifier, and they will know by your actions and your continual growth and your testimony, and they will know where you stand on the issue.
How would that affect visits? David.
So, did you just ask how would that affect visits?
Yes, if they were living the lifestyle and came to visit with a partner.
So, I've seen in my life that there are two ways that people really support me and have an impact in my life. The first is just being a better parent, a better friend, a better sibling, and focusing on the really, really basic stuff. When someone comes up to me in church and just says, I love you, and gives me a hug, like, regardless if it's a guy or a girl, and they just say, David, I love you, I admire you, I think about you, like, that's this type of thing that I need. I need to be affirmed in the good that I do. And so when people support me in the good that I do and are just good friends and good family members, just basically, that really develops my relationship with them and meets my needs. How would it affect visits? I think that when the Lord gives us very specific issues, he also is willing to give us very specific revelation if we are willing to turn to him and ask him very specific questions. And so if you have children who are living the gay lifestyle and you have questions, you have the ability to turn to the Lord and ask, God, I have this son, he has a partner, he wants to come home, I don't know what to do, I want him to feel loved, what do I do, what should I do? And he will give you that response. And if you go to him and you say, this is the decision that I've made, he will not allow you to make the wrong decision. That's the amazing thing about the gospel, about personal revelation, is that you don't have to create a blanket statement that applies to everyone because there isn't one. The Lord will give you specific revelation according to your needs, and he will ensure that you don't do anything to jeopardize that relationship or your beliefs.
I just wanted to say one of the most greatest blessings that I ever had was after finally acknowledging that my same gender attractions were okay to have, that I was all right, there was nothing wrong with me. I went back to New York and I met with my son and with his partner, and we went out to dinner, and I stayed for 3 days, and we talked about a lot of different things. But the one thing that we came away with was, I'll respect your right to choose and to act on however you choose, but you need to respect my right to choose and act in the way that I want to. And since then, learning not to judge them or judge any same sex couple, but just love them, has changed everything for us. It's made it so where if they can't come to the house, there's no issue. We have a picture on our wall with our son and his partner in there along with the family. Unfortunately, he's not his partner anymore, but kind of hard to get that out of the picture, but yeah.
Thank you.
I was just going to say something I've been thinking a lot about lately, and it is actually kind of bothers me now, is why, because I experienced this, do I have to be, I think this is part of the problem. We then say, oh, I don't know how to relate to you. I don't know how to respond to you. You have same gender attraction. And I just think, even from my perspective, it's looking at other people and saying, yeah, I don't understand exactly what you're going through, but can I apply the gospel principles and treat you as a son or daughter of God? Yes. And I think that it goes both ways.
I think that's a good point. A lot of times it is our fears and our ignorance that prevent us from being there for people, instead of just saying, I'm fearful and ignorant. Can you help me help you? Can you help me support you? Is a better word. Thanks for that.
And don't roll your eyes.
And don't roll your eyes. Really important detail.
Because I think what you just said was really critical, Lily. Because I think the two areas we can't go wrong is seeking revelation, and one, listening. Because I don't have to agree with you to really, really listen. And so just to even say, I don't know, I just want to hear your story. Tell me your story. And during that story, I think we'll get some of those insights, and you can't go wrong by just listening and loving. That's one place the other piece of this is that there are so many different variables that go into all of this. In Elder Oak's talk, Love and Law, he talked about avoiding the extremes. But there's also so many different, whether, if you're going back to the question of visiting, are they older, younger? If my child is in a same-sex marriage, like they've been married, is that different than my, college student who's bringing home his boyfriend and, they've been out clubbing or something like that? I mean, there's just all sorts of different variables that come into play that I think there's, because we really want answers. Tell me how to do this. Give me the pattern, and there are way too many variables to establish a set answer to this, and just leaves. The only way to do it is just to have some guiding principles and seek revelation.
Well, as has been mentioned, when we go through our own challenges, we grow closer to the Spirit if we're trying to be guided by our Heavenly Father and find the path for us that leads us into the kingdom of God in full fellowship. And those who have a friend who's struggling or a family member who's struggling have the same journey. How can they go to the Spirit? How can they go to God to find out how they can grow from that experience of trying to support somebody who's struggling with a particular problem? I know in my marriage, often when I had prayed for help for my husband to get something right, the Spirit would tell me, "You don't think this is just about him, do you?" My answer was, well, yeah, I did, but apparently it's not. All these struggles are for all of us to come to God. That's the source of all understanding. And what a nice way to express that. Thank you for all your comments. I'm going to go with another question. There are many good questions here. How do you make male friends and not experience the physical attraction when bonding?
I do experience physical attraction.
That would be an understandable answer. So how do you deal with it?
So one of my favorite blog posts was actually on this topic. And I feel like there's a difference between love and lust. And I feel like there's a difference between like the good part of same-gender attraction and the part of same-gender attraction that will like throw you in a pit and smash you. And in my mind, I think that I'm able to determine which of those are. If it makes me think about someone more and makes me care about them and makes me want to make them a better person and really relates with the love that God has, which is that we want people to be happy and eternally happy, then that's a good thing. If it just gratifies some personal need, then that's really not, and that's lust. And like, I like to smash lust and just like get rid of it. And I mean, sometimes that's complicated, oftentimes it is, but I think that it's definitely possible in relationships to make a distinction between the love and the lust, the attractions that will help you to become a better person, and the attractions that might pull you down the wrong road.
Yes.
I have to say this. My best friend is in the audience today. And I love this man with all my heart. And we share same-sex attraction, but we tell each other, I'm not attracted to you. I'm not sexually attracted to you. And I says, well, I'm not to you either. But there are boundaries. And for me, friendship is not sexual whatsoever. And I am grateful for male friendship. And that's, I think, the point is setting those boundaries and knowing where you are with that individual.
Correct.
In coming back, where I work, there's a couple of gentlemen I work with that I was very attracted to, and actually one was my home teaching companion. And I had to learn how to have healthy relationships with men. And I had to stop and think, if I did anything, I would ruin the relationship with this person that I'm trying to develop. So, as much as we want to be respected, we have to respect them. And that is how those healthy relationships start. And when you start to think about that and pull things back into a perspective of where things need to be, those relationships develop. And you can have a great time with him. You can go punch him on the shoulder and give him a little dig or whatever and stuff like that. But he cares as much for you as you care for him, and it's healthy.
That's nice. Thanks, Craig. This is an important question that we need to work in because we're running out of time. To those who have lived the lifestyle and come back to the gospel, could you talk about what that process was like for you?
Well, it's not easy, as you can imagine. I really struggled at first because I didn't know if I should, because I was drinking a lot at the time too. I smoked and all of that, so there was more than one element to coming back. And I really struggled with, oh, should I quit everything at the same time or just, piece by piece kind of a thing. But I had actually, the summer before, I really came back. I tried but failed because I kept my friends that were in same-sex relationships and drinking, and I came to the conclusion that they couldn't be part of my life like that anymore. And that was, it seemed unimaginable to have to do that because they knew who I really was. They knew so much about me. They were my family. And it was really hard, but I had to do it. And sometimes to be a disciple of Christ, we have to be willing to stand alone. And that's the choice that I made. And eventually I found friends that brought me in and loved me and allowed me to share this part of my life with them. And really it's about just finding a good group of friends that can help you.
Thanks, Krista. Craig?
When I decided to come back, I looked at what I wanted from an eternal perspective. And once I figured that out, it made a huge difference in my life of why I wanted to come back and how I was going to come back. There were a lot of friends that actually had become acquaintances after a while, but there are still a couple of friends of mine that I told them what I was doing, and either respect it or don't. I mean, you have the agency to do what you want to do, and so do I. So those friends that I still have that are gay, respect it. And others that don't have moved on and done other things. So it's no big deal. But that eternal perspective for me is what catapulted me into wanting to come back to the gospel. Also, another thing that really helped me getting back was that the few experiences I had that were spiritual, I started to thrive after that spirituality. And I started to need to be fed by it. I would go to sacrament meeting, and somewhere in that sacrament meeting, either a song or something, a talk, something just triggered it, and the emotions just flooded out of me. And I was running out of there after the prayer because I didn't want anybody to see anything. But then I would find myself at the end of the week wanting to go back and have more. So the thing is if you're thinking you're wanting to go back, go try and put yourself in situations where you're going to have spiritual experiences. Listen to conference talks. Listen to the Tabernacle Choir. Be with friends that are going to uplift you and help and draw from their spirit. And those things really were significant in me coming back.
Thank you. Ben?
It's hard. I'm just going to say it's hard. And I'm probably almost 2 years being back active in the church, and it's still hard. I have a lot to figure out, a lot to navigate, and it's been a process. So I think if you're going to make that decision, just be patient. Be ready to change those bad habits. If you've been drinking, you have to stop drinking. There's a lot of things that people have to change in order to come back to church, and it's a process. And my mom and dad were heavily involved in my process in coming back. And one of my favorite things that my mom said was, just take it hour by hour. Just figure out how you're going to get through the next hour. Don't get discouraged if you're not exactly where you think you should be. You are where you are, and I think sometimes we have to accept that and then move forward. And something that's funny to me, because I do put myself out there on a blog, but I have gay friends who read it, and the comments that I get now sometimes from them is, I always knew you were hetero. So.
Is it okay if I say one more thing?
Yes.
I think it's important to note that when you come back to church, it's not just, oh, I came back, great. You are going to fall. There's many times where I have messed up, if you will. I mean, I'm I decided to come back to church about 3.5 years ago, but I'm not even a year sober. It's almost been a year, but there's going to be times where you're going to fall, but that doesn't mean you have to stay there. Be okay with that, move on, get back up, and just make sure that every so often you take the opportunity to look at the progress you've made and not just focus on the mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life until I had children, and then I had to suffer the pain of my kids, not just having kids, but although that was close. But I did a diagram in my first book where I did, here's my progress, and I was like this, and then it goes down, and then it goes up, and then it goes down, not quite as far, and then it goes up and down, and it went on for years for me, and life is a process, and to say, oh, I failed, it is so true that no, you don't fail, you just make mistakes, and then you just keep trying, and you know what your goal is. And I couldn't have done it without the Spirit, without a bishop, without friends that were guided by the Spirit. Just every way I could get fed by the Spirit, that's what I went after. That's what I learned to be fed by that, and not fed by those relationships.
Thank you so much for your participation. Can we give a round of applause to our panelists? I'm sure we would all love to hear more about them, and I appreciate the projects that are going on that allow us to hear more, and I am grateful for what I've heard today. There is an announcement that was given to me by Pam Infungis, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Moms, the group of moms, if you want to meet together for lunch, gather in the back of this room and find Pam. Now, before we do that, we're going to have a 15-minute break not breaking up yet, to talk about our booths. So I'm going to turn the time over to John.
Aren't you enjoying this? Isn't this great? My goodness. What we'd like to do for a minute is just have those that are manning the booths, if we could have you just come up, take 30 seconds, describe what's going on there, why that would be just great. So whoever, and let's just go counterclockwise, kind of around the room, and so up we come. Dave, you want to take it first here? And you will. Good job.
I'm taking it because I don't have a booth, but I would like to be considered a resource if anyone needs some help. You can go to North Star and find out how to contact me. I've got a blog on there, and I would be happy to email or do phone calls with anyone. And also, because I'm such a poor marketer, I also have a new book out called Reborn That Way that you can get on Amazon, and you won't find it back there because I'm not quite that organized. But anyway, if there's anyone I could help, I'd be happy to. She said, say my name again, and it's Laurie Campbell and not Aaron Eldridge, which was my first pen name, but now I use Laurie Campbell.
All right, hi. I'm involved with 2 different booths back there, and so I'm taking more than 30 seconds.
Okay, I'll tap you on the shoulder when you're ready.
Okay, so the first one is Center for Gender Wholeness. Oh, not loud enough? Okay. The Center for Gender Wholeness, which has an office in Holiday and another office here in Provo. And we work with individuals with unwanted homosexuality. And therapy has been seen in the past as being all about changing sexual orientation. And although treatment or therapy does for some people bring that about or bring about some shifts, it needs to be seen in a broader context. It's really about relief from distress and development of wholeness. And so therapy with us is centered on where the individual is and on helping the individual meet his goals. That's the one. I thought I was going to have like a minute. Okay, number 2, I've been threatening for 6 years to publish a book, and it's finally here. And I'm not going to take time to try to explain this book to you, other than it's big, and it's big because it's full of a lot of stuff. It's specifically for individuals with unwanted homosexuality, and yet it's not about that. It's about a much broader topic of wholeness as a man. And then I'm going to introduce also Sherry Solberg, who's going to introduce a valuable resource also.
Good job.
Hi, I'm glad to be here with you today. I'm back in the back right over there with a product called Q Sciences, and they're waving right back there. There's Peggy Matheson right back there. We'd really invite you to come back and learn more about it. But I heard a quote yesterday that I'd like to read to you that describes our company, Q Sciences, and it says, "Transforming a system begins with proving there's an alternative that works." And that's really what we're doing at Q Sciences. We are, we have, I can't think when he's talking behind me like this. We have 23 independent medical research studies on it. The last one is what we have shown is it helps with addiction. It's a product for mood disorder, anything from stress all the way up to more serious mood disorders. It helps a lot with anxiety and depression. And what we have found is it's hard to feel the spirit and to work on things when you can't get your head above ground. So we're here to help with that. We're here to help with mood disorders. So come see us in the back. We'd like to share information with you. Thank you.
Sorry to do that to you. I'm a professor, and I give my students 10, 9, 8, so we'll just do that. Yeah. Go.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Greg Harris, and I'm here representing North Star International. Today, we are excited to announce our inaugural North Star Conference that will be taking place May 30th and 31st of next year. We're very, very excited. The theme that we've chosen for our conference is At Home in the Gospel of Jesus Christ. And we will have sign-ups there for you to be able to come. We have a special offer today for you to be able to donate and receive discounts. If you donate $50 to the conference, you'll get $15 discount, $100 a $40 discount, and if you donate $250, it'll be free. Thank you so much, and we really look forward to having you as part of our first conference this upcoming year.
Thanks. We're back in the very corner. I'm representing Century Publishing. We are a small local publisher, mostly publishing small markets and LDS books. We've published 8 books about same-sex attraction. So if you want to come by and look at some for men, for families and friends, there's a book about dealing with trials in life. We've got some books in Spanish also. We also run the website samesexattraction.org. So if you'll come by, there's a table in the very corner of free literature, some church publications, and talks by general authorities about same-sex attraction.
You nailed it. Good. There you go.
I'm Steve Densley. I am the Vice President of Fair Mormon. We just changed our name. Some of you may have noticed as FAIR, or the Foundation for Apologetic Information and Research. We respond to anti-Mormon criticisms, pretty broad-based. We've got some books back there, some pamphlets. We can talk to you a little bit more about what we do. Joshua Johansson is here with me as well, who's going to tell you a little bit more about why we're here at this conference in particular.
If I have any time. Well, obviously homosexuality is a big thing with criticism, but also how to deal with it yourself. I know when I was starting to come to terms with SSA, I had a bunch of questions.
We do have resources on our website that deal with same-sex attraction issues in particular. So come on back and talk with Joshua, and we'll tell you a bit more about what we're doing. Thanks.
Good job.
My name is Scott Peterson. I'm with the Lifestar Network. We're over here on your right. We deal with sexual compulsivity and addiction, and have programs for both the addict as well as their partners. And we found that there are some parallels between the addictive process as well as those that suffer from same-gender attraction. So please come back and visit us. We'll answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
You win. What a brutal timekeeper, huh? Gee whiz. That's from being a bishop and a stake president. That's how that goes. Let's meet together back here, shall we, at exactly 1:15. Please visit our booths, and if you want to get something to eat, there's lots to do around. If we can have anyone who's on a panel, anybody who's on a board, if you'd meet just right over here in this area, that would be wonderful right now. Thank you.
Welcome back. We hope you enjoyed your lunch, and that if you're new with us this afternoon, welcome. This panel is focused on helping others who may be experiencing same-gender or same-sex attraction. And we want to introduce each of our panel members and let them take a few moments to tell you why they're here and who they are. Let's just start right here, and we'll go around and grab a mic and share them so that you can be well heard. So please say your name and why you're joining us here today.
My name is Paul Mackley. I'm from North Ogden, Utah. I'm a stake president, good friends and neighbors with Dale and Uni Larson that participated in an earlier session on a panel. I'm a priesthood leader who's here to learn more than I am to teach. I think I've been more enlightened over the last year as as a stake, have worked with Dale and Uni, and they have been, just for your information, called to serve as special service missionaries, if you will, in our area. We've had great support from our area authority 70s, and we hosted a priesthood leader training about a year ago in the fall that had about 300 and some odd priesthood leaders, young women leaders, Relief Society presidents, where we just felt like, I think with Ty and Dale and myself, we had a great experience. I was talking with President Dowley a little bit earlier at lunch about this, and it was kind of like a day of Pentecost, if you will, a spiritual outpouring, and love was the basis and the motivator, and all that went on there was, I think, edifying for everybody who was in attendance. So that was my experience about a year ago, and we're continuing to host in our stake a quarterly fireside now where, more than anything, I think we're trying to provide a safe place for individuals who are challenged with same-gender attraction to come and feel the Spirit of the Lord and strengthen their testimony in the Savior and the atonement. And I think, we've got individuals in our stake that are challenged. We've got people that come to that from a long distance, but it's just been a great forum, I think, for me to grow. And I view it as a dimension of my discipleship that's changed significantly in the last year. My early exposure to some of these challenges out there in the world was back in '97 when I attended a World Congress of Families in Geneva, Switzerland. As you recall, the Proclamation to the World on the Family came out in '95, and this is just a few years after. But I think the time is ripe now to have a more open forum and to have an opportunity for priesthood leaders to learn more and to study more diligently what's already been taught by the prophets. In our conference a year ago, as we worked with priesthood leaders, I think we had the opportunity to study some things that were in print, general conference talks, God Loveth His Children pamphlet. We listed 7 or 8 or 9. Dale and Ty and I and Elder Summerhays worked together to create a resource packet that we provided to all of the stake presidents in our 10 stake area. Now I think our current area authority, Elder Fisher, is comfortable having that expand to 30 stakes that he has jurisdiction with. So it's beginning to ripen in terms of the time is right, the need is there. We're learning as priesthood leaders to be a little bit more Christ-like in our discipleship. So it changes my perspective that began in 1997 at the World Congress of Families, which was probably more likely motivated by some fears and some concerns about worldwide and international movements that were dangerous to families as we know it. And so now I think I'm being balanced. The Lord's provided me an opportunity to be a little bit more balanced in my discipleship. So I'm here, glad to be here to learn more than anything. So good to be here. It's been a top-notch thing so far.
Thank you.
Okay, remind me again. What did you want me?
Good question. This panel is on how to engage in effective support and ministry, but you can just start by introducing yourselves if you'd like, and we'll get to some topics. So,
okay, I am Linnell Moore. My husband Tyler Moore, and I'm excited to be here. I have received a lot of help throughout my experiences with Tyler, and I look for opportunities, and I'm grateful for opportunities to be able to just talk to someone or to give back, because I've received so much, and I continue to receive a lot of support and friendship, and so I'm grateful that I've been asked to be here, and so yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Linnell.
She introduced me, so I'll just keep Tyler Moore, and as Linnell pointed out, here to talk about a lot of ways that not only I have been helped, but that we as a couple have been helped as a family, and ways that I know have helped other men with this issue. And then also, as Linnell said, being able to follow up with ways that I have tried to give back, and ways that we can all move this conversation forward and continue to have it grow.
And Tyler and Linnell have a new little one with you. Who's holding the baby? Back here. How old is this baby?
6 weeks.
Well, we're glad that you're here. Thank you for coming. Justin?
My name's Justin McFeeters. I work for LDS Family Services. I teach marriage and family therapy at Argosy University, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in private practice in Bountiful as well. I'm here because about 5 years ago, I met with a client in Chicago, and I realized how great a need there was for more resources, for more help. And at first, it felt like there wasn't anything. And the more I talked to people, the more I learned. I saw that there were more and more resources available. But I just saw a great need to get those resources connected to the people that need them.
My name is Jeff Benyon, and I'm here representing North Star International. I'm currently serving, and we haven't sent out a press release or anything about this, so it's probably news, even though it shouldn't be. I was recently appointed as chairman of the board of North Star. So, and I just wanted to say, as one of the people that's been with North Star from the beginning, kind of why we started, which will also answer your question, I think, Lily, about what we hope to offer. So around 2006, when these discussions started happening, the people having those discussions felt that there was really only one model around, and I don't know how true it was, but that was the impression was, it was basically, oh, you poor dears, once you get fixed, you'll be okay. We're sorry. You have to feel this way. And I'm not saying that's false or incorrect. I think everybody, in fact, whether they deal with same-sex attraction or not, has moments when they need help, when they need support, when they need compassion. I certainly have. And at the same time, many of us had come to the point where we realized this doesn't have to be, that's only one part of the story. And I don't think it's how it's intended to be. I don't think that's why Heavenly Father gave us or allowed us, however you want to conceive of that, to have this challenge. I think, indeed, I've experienced and felt how much a blessing it is to me. And so not merely do we need support and help, which we do, like any Latter-day Saint does, like any human being needs, but in addition to that, we have something to offer. We have a gift to offer the church, the world, and each other. And one of those gifts we have to offer each other is just role models. There's not necessarily one way. We all have to find our path through this. Everybody's going to be different. You know, what causes same-sex attraction? What leads to those things? I have my own opinions on that, but there's a variety of those, and there's different ways people got into this, and there's different ways people get through it. And what we wanted to do at North Star was offer as many gospel-centered and gospel-harmonized role models of ways to do that. And from our position, the more the merrier. And the bigger we can get that and the more stories we can tell, the better. So things like our Voice of Hope project and our conference coming up and our online discussion groups and everything we're doing is trying to center around, of course, providing help and support to people who need it, whether that be priesthood leaders or family members or people that deal with it themselves, to the church at large. You know, I've given a Voice of Hope book or other books to people that don't deal with this, and they say, you know, there's still so many principles of the gospel there that apply to me, even though I have no personal experience with this issue. So I think it's even bigger than, you know, I think the Lord has bigger plans for us and what we may consider trials or challenges than we can even conceive right now.
My name's Kayla Birmingham, and my narrative for why I'm here has changed this past year. I've actually had a lot of anxiety the past few days about what I would say today that I would feel comfortable saying. Because to be honest, this year has been extremely hard for me. Really hard. I returned to the church about 3.5 years ago. No, just about 3 years ago, actually last October. And life was just on cruise control for a long time until it wasn't. And it's been really, really hard. And I guess why I'm here, and I'm kind of grateful that I'm in this forum, this second panel today now, because I can bear testimony of some people who've helped me. So why I'm here, I guess I'm here to say why I'm still here. Because even though I came back to the church a few years ago, I had every opportunity to leave again. And it would have been really easy, a lot easier in a lot of ways. And so I'm really grateful that I do have a community around me to help me. I'm grateful that, in the middle of the night, if I need a priesthood blessing, I can call a North Star friend to come and give me a blessing. I'm grateful for, an ecclesiastical leader who a few weeks ago I drove all the way to Oregon because he's the mission president there now. He actually spoke at a North Star fireside last summer. But I drove all the way to Oregon to get a priesthood blessing. I'm extremely grateful for those types of people in my life, and it's those types of people that keep me going and why I'm alive a lot of the time. So I'm here to say why I'm still here. And why I'm still here is because of people in the community who've reached out to me and loved me and believed in me and taken time for me, even when my actions go against my best character sometimes.
Thank you, Kayla.
My name is Heather Nelson. I'm from Ogden. I'm here because I'm a mom, and I'm just really humbled by the stories that I've heard by those who were here earlier, the bravery to share your stories, and grateful for that. I have 5 children. We do this with my husband, Craig. We have 5 children, including 1 son who is talented and wonderful and articulate and loving, and also suffers with same-gender attraction. He told us about this when he was about 17. He's now 33, and so we've been dealing with it for a while. Somebody at lunch asked how long we've been active in same-gender issues, and I thought we really haven't been. We were asked to give a fireside at North Star in September, and we're able to share some of the things that we have learned and felt as parents, some of the struggles that we have had. And so that's why we were asked to be here today, and hope that whatever we might have, I feel like the stake president, we're here to learn as well. We certainly don't feel like experts at this at all, except that we love our son and we love our Heavenly Father, and we want to do what's right. And so that's why we're here.
Well, I'm Craig. It's a match set. She got invited, so I had to come. So, our son Danny is not active in the church right now. He recently, he and his partner were married. They could do that where they live, and so it's created a lot of issues for us to deal with, and could relate to some of the questions and feelings that were expressed in the panel this morning, and so hope that we might be able to learn and maybe contribute something. It's nice to be here.
My name is Matt Leduc, and as I was getting ready to do this, they sent around an email that had the list of reasons why we were here and the different things, and next to my name it said divorced man. So that's why I'm here.
Did that escape our drafts?
And all of us are trying to get to a certain place in our life, and we're trying to do different things, and sometimes we have things where we feel like we're moving forward, and sometimes, at times when we feel like we're almost walking backwards. And for me, I had a lot of people around me that helped me keep going forward when things were rough, and hopefully we can help somebody else today.
Thanks, Matt.
My name is Danny Caldwell. I'm here with my beautiful wife, Erin. We've been married about 6 years, and we have 3 amazing little boys. One 2-week-old. He's back there with Grandma. So, and we're here. I experienced same-sex attraction, and we are here because we've been tremendously helped through many resources, some that have been here, North Star, religious leaders, supportive parents, through some really, really tough times in my personal life and in our life as a couple. And through that help and that support that we've received, I've felt a very strong calling to be a support and help to other people. And so I'm now a licensed clinical mental health counselor. I work with the Center for Gender Wholeness. And really that passion came out of all the support and love that I received through a very trying and difficult few years, many years in my life. And so that's why I'm here, to share some of my story of how I've been helped and how I continue to help others. So thanks.
Like you said, I'm Erin Caldwell. I just got here, and I just want to let you know that the spirit is tremendously strong here. It could be because I'm 2 weeks postpartum, or because I've been really working hard the last 6 months to year on working on my feelings and what I feel. But I'm feeling very in tuned right now, and very, right here, tender, yeah. I'm here to support my husband and to also testify of the amazing change that I've seen my husband. And in what I mean by change is the confidence and the self-awareness and I don't know, I think he's amazing. So I just think he's found himself in this past 6 years. And then so I want to testify on this work, and I want to testify on our marriage and how it's made us a pretty strong couple. And I think we have a long way to go, but it's kind of exciting and scary to be able to acknowledge it, own it, and to work on it. So I'm here as a support for Danny, but also as a person here to testify, looking on the outside, how awesome he's been doing, and then also to testify in our relationship how when you work on yourself, how it makes you a better team and a better person.
My name is Lisa Tensmeyer Hansen, and I think I'm on this panel because I'm a licensed therapist, a marriage and family therapist, and a doctoral student at BYU who is interested in expanding all the opportunities we have to understand what's going on with our young people who begin to recognize that they have same-sex attraction. And because of what's happened in society and in our church, they often come to this with negative stigma almost immediately. They want to fight these feelings and not look at them in their own lives. And I come to this wanting for all of us to understand the positive aspects of being someone who experiences same-sex attractions. That is, that it is not just a negative thorn in a person's side. It can be the catalyst for the best spiritual and emotional experiences of a person's life. And as our young people don't understand this, then they cut themselves off from the best things inside of themselves, their spirituality, their emotionality, their sociality, and then they feel like shells and are not sure where to turn. The alarming suicide rates of young people who are not just gay or lesbian, but who have been active in the church and have decided that there is no place on the map of the plan of happiness that has their name on it, alarms me. It alarms all of us. It's 8 times more for someone who is in that position. So that's my interest. I have a group at BYU. It's part of Kendall Wilcox's Circles of Empathy, trying to help therapists at BYU understand this issue, and also give people, gay and lesbian people from the community, a chance to dialogue And as I finish a group, each one says, oh, this needs to happen more. More people need to dialogue and understand where people are coming from. So I think that's why I'm on this panel.
Thanks. Plus, Lisa and I grew up in Indianapolis together a long time ago, so it's fun to run into old friends. Let's start our panel discussion today, and thank you for those introductions. Let's talk about what was most helpful to you, whether or not you experienced or have experienced same-gender attraction, or whether or not someone else has, or in learning about this situation, for those of you who are here as therapists or church leaders, what was most helpful and what was least helpful in the responses of others?
Can we switch those around?
Yes, we can start with the bad first. You want to start, Tyler?
Sure.
Thanks.
Least helpful. I have a few things to choose from, so I'm trying to pick carefully.
Oh, give us a couple.
Therapists, counselors out there, don't ask your clients in front of their spouse after you've just started counseling, on a scale of 1 to 100, how gay versus straight do you feel today? And ask that question every single time. That wasn't helpful. For me, something that wasn't helpful was just the idea that I'm going to get some counseling and then it's all going to be just fine. And then it's all going to be, and then I'm going to be over it. And just thinking, okay, when am I going to be at that destination of being over it and being done? And for me, it's not a matter of being over it. It's a matter of saying, you know what, this is a part of my mortality and a part of my experience, and taking it a different direction, and as was mentioned, using that as a catalyst to some of the most significant emotional and spiritual growth, as opposed to something to fight, something that's adversarial, but rather something that can be a teacher. Something that has been very helpful. I can think of numerous examples of times where I have felt absolute love from people that I did not expect to feel after they learned about my secret. And the two that come to mind, I was scared to death to tell my dad. Scared to death to tell him. And I told him, and he responded so well, I didn't think he understood what I was saying. And he just was so patient and so loving, and so, this doesn't change anything. This doesn't, you're still my son. You're still, if anything, I love you more. The second example is my mother-in-law, who I had at times a difficult relationship with. And when she first found out, her and my father-in-law both responded in such kindness and love. And I will never forget standing in my apartment in Sacramento. They came out to support Linnell as our home was in turmoil when all this was going on. And I remember I did some of the dishes, and I said, I just always told myself that if people knew this about me, they wouldn't love me. And she put her hand on my shoulder, and she turned me around, and she said, Tyler, I know, and I still love you. And then she gave me an embrace that was sincere, that was heartfelt. I received a similar embrace from a stake president after being disfellowshipped and refellowshipped in front of his entire high council as he kissed me on the cheek and gave me that assurance of his love for me. Those are the things that have been most helpful.
Thank you, Tyler. Linnell, do you have something to share?
You had to bring that up. Okay. No, I concur what Tyler said. The first thing that came to my mind was definitely my parents. in a good way, shocked and surprised at their reaction. It was not anything of, well, you need to do this, well, what's going to go on, and it wasn't starting to talk. It was very much just a loving response and a listening and just kind of taking it in. And throughout the next year, the response of my parents was very much, it wasn't, I've had friends tell me that their parents, other wives, well, you don't need to stay. You can just come and stay with me for a bit. You don't need to be there. You don't need to deal with this. Their response was very much, you have an eternal family, and this is where you're supposed to be, and this is what you're supposed to work on. And they supported me very much through my marriage. And they saw the eternal perspective, and that helped me to be able to be more firm in my resolve to stay in this this marriage and where I knew it could go and what it could be. And so that was the first thing that came to my mind, was my parents and their response.
Anything that was least helpful or less helpful from anybody?
I don't know.
That's okay. You can still think about it. Who's got something else to say?
One of the things that's been most difficult for some of my clients to hear from their bishops is, don't think about this, don't identify about this, just move on with your life and enjoy your life. And what this says to young people is, this part of your life is invisible to the rest of us, and we don't care about it or what it means to you. And that creates a lot of depression, anxiety, and actually encourages people not to participate or talk to their bishops, when really a good relationship could really help them through.
And I'd like to speak a little more to that. And that I think there's the church's stand on homosexuality is that it's not a sin to have these feelings, but it is a sin to act on these feelings. And I think that oftentimes gets turned into, well, just ignore it, just pretend it's not there. And I think I heard this somewhere, and I think it might have been Ty Mansfield who said this at one time, but said that it's not realistic to ask somebody to not act on these feelings, because these feelings are there for a reason. We just need to learn to help people learn to act on these feelings in healthy ways. It's a sign of some need that needs to be met. And oftentimes that need is, I need love, I need connection. And so instead of saying, ignore these feelings, what they really need is to look at those feelings, find out what they're really about, and to feel love from their priesthood leaders, from their parents. And then if needs be, get into therapy to help work through some of those wounds and those needs that feel unmet or that need to be looked at and addressed.
Thanks, Danny. Kayla, what are you thinking?
I do have some thoughts. I'm going to try and say this as articulately and as I can, and with a little bit more deliberation than I probably did last year. I love my family a lot, and because I love them so much, their response to this part of me hurts a lot, because we don't talk about it. And in the back of my mind, there's always that thought, if I was not living the gospel, I would not be welcome in my parents' home. And I know that, and in the back of my mind, that's hard to trust them. And with that being said, my family not being my go-to, although I love them very much for their other strengths and love that they show up to me, my community has been my outreach. It's all I've ever had is friends who've substituted as family and ecclesiastical leaders who, number one, were doing the things to be in tune with the Spirit, and number two, were so willing to love. Those two things were just so huge for me. I had kind of a miracle this summer. I was going through an extremely hard time. I was really suicidal. I felt completely isolated. I was mad at myself, and I'm very hard to forgive myself. Like, I just don't. I know a lot of people are like that, but I just don't. I'm still working on it. So I had a lady who was a second counselor in my bishoprics wife in my singles ward. And one night, I don't really know her, and one night she called me up and said, I need you to come to my house right now. I'm like, why? I'm not coming over. That's weird. She's like, come over right now. It's like 11 at night. And, you know, I rescheduled for the next day, and I went over there, and she said, you know, I just couldn't sleep. I just couldn't sleep whatsoever. And all I could think about was that something's wrong with you. And so here I am. I don't know what's wrong with you, but you kept me up all night. So what's going on? What's going on in your life, you know? And I kind of told her a little bit, but I didn't tell her about my attraction to women. And she said, are you attracted to women? Like, sure. Why not? And she said, you know, I've been dealing with some girls in my home ward who've been going through this, and I don't know why, but I just need to tell you to just stay. Just stay. Just keep going. And it just shocked me, because that's exactly what I needed to hear. She didn't know who I was, but the Spirit told her, and she was willing to invite me into her home, to open herself up to me, and to deliver the Lord's message. And those two things are so crucial. I think if we are going to be a community of love and acceptance and helping to bring people back into the fold, is number one, you know, being in tune with the Spirit, and number two, being willing to follow through with it and love your fellow neighbors.
Thank you. Jeff, you've got the mic. What would you like to say?
Okay. Gosh, I don't know what to add, except we talked about how valuable role models are, and Kayla was saying in her introduction she was still here. I'm in the slow learner club too, so I personally experienced this as well, and I didn't get married until very late, and honestly, when I started dating my wife, I was just humoring the friend who lined us up. So it wasn't, marriage by that point was just not a practicality for me. It just wasn't possible. I couldn't even be in a relationship with a woman, let alone, you know, for 4 hours, let alone lifetime. So when my mom would say things like, well, your friend Paul got married, your friend Joe got married, why? What are they doing that you're not? So role models are really helpful, and role models can be used to make us, you know, feel really bad and difficult. I know, and hurt and feel more isolated. I know, you know, Josh Weed has talked about this, if you know him, or Ty has talked about this after the cover of LDS Living, where mothers would say to their boys, or fathers would say to their sons or daughters, look, Ty's doing it, or Josh did it, you know, you can too. And so that's...
okay, so role models good, comparisons bad.
Right, perfect, yes. What's positive, I love what everybody said, and I agree with all of it. So, and then I'd add one that I think has helped me a lot too, is, and I still, well, going from kind of a victim of circumstance, oh, woe is me, why do I have this, why am I so stuck, why do I still feel this way, why do I, you know, why? Elder Maxwell always says, you know, instead of asking why me, ask why not me. And if why not me, then what do I have? Instead of thinking about what I lack, what do I have? And what great things can I do of my own free will that will bring to pass much righteousness? You know, so I'll hear people say to me, oh, the church needs to do X, or oh, we need a program that does Y. And I'll say, great, go do it. That's where your heart hunger is. That's where your energy is. That's what you need to do. And I can't tell you how much I've seen of successful people when they've said, I need this. This is what I need. This is what I want. And it's not fair that the people most suffering from that are going to be the ones that have to build it. But that's the way I think it's going to be. That's the way it has been. So it's just, I want to say to everybody here, whatever you think you lack, whatever you miss, as Danny said, what is this deep, true need coming from? Satan's not original at all. He is the biggest copycat ever. He can only create shadows and inverses of what is real. And so I'm here to tell every one of you, if there is an impulse in you think is evil or wrong or bad, that's mistaken. Either it's not a true impulse, or it just has a golden aspect of it and a goodly, godly aspect to it that you haven't found yet. And as you find that, as you seek to enact that in your life and bless others with it, you'll be amazed at what can change.
Thanks, Jeff. Matt, would you add something?
One of the things that I would say when my wife and I started having problems and things started going south, and I know this isn't just common to that one situation, but everything is that isolation. Mm-hmm. The minute that you think that it'll just go away, it won't. You know, so the biggest thing I would say is just being able to talk about exactly what's going on and what you're thinking and what you're feeling, because if you think that it's going to just resolve itself, it won't do that. And for us, one of the biggest problems is that we weren't completely, like, I know a lot of people that have been up here, their wife found out later on. My wife knew long before we were ever married. There was no question about that. She knew long before we ever started dating. But one of the biggest problems was almost related to that, in the sense that she never, when her anxiety and depression started kicking up, she didn't want to talk about it, because she didn't want to seem like she had a problem with it, because that would make her seem like a bad person, I think. So in return, we didn't talk about it, and next thing we know, we were having lots of problems, and because of that, it just wasn't working out. So one of the biggest things I would say is just be, and this isn't only in marriage, but with yourself, just be completely open about how you're feeling, and if you're seeing a counselor or anybody, just say exactly what it is, because if you don't, that problem's never going to be fixed.
Thank you. That's a great comment. Heather, how about you? From a parent's perspective, do you and Craig have some thoughts about what was most or least helpful?
I was just thinking if I could just send out a plea to be patient with your parents. I think as a parent you have a lot of hopes and dreams for your kids, and maybe a picture in your head of what's going to happen. And it's hard to give that up sometimes and realize that they're on a different path, or that their way of getting to their happiness isn't going to be what you thought it was going to be. I think I've experienced mostly kindness. I've been surprised a little bit at my own. I have a large extended family, and their response to my son's same-gender attraction. Everybody loves Danny. He's just one of those kids that is very engaging, and so I was worried how they would respond to it, and we didn't really talk about it for a long time. And I think that in some ways we probably made some mistakes, but we felt that this was his to share when he was ready to share it. And so, like I say, mostly I've experienced kindness from other people. When I think about what's been most helpful, it has been Heavenly Father. And as a parent, when things would come up and I would think, how does Heavenly Father deal with it when his children are choosing things that they've been taught better? How does Heavenly Father deal with it when his children turn away from him? And I think I've learned more about myself, about what I need to do as a parent, about his love for his children through those experiences. So that's been my greatest resource.
Thanks.
I'd probably add the same, that in essence, the idea of being patient. You've folks who have the same gender attraction had a lot of thought. I know in my son's case, he knew about it a lot long before he told us about it. He had done research, he had thought about it, he talked to some friends who had the same issues that they were dealing with. And so I kind of think about it as an alphabet. He was on LMNOP in the alphabet, and I hadn't even started A. And so when you introduce the topic, they're not going to most parents are not as far along. They haven't thought it. It's a surprise, and so your patience or ability to let them come along in the alphabet in terms of understanding would be great. I was thinking earlier that in many ways it's the response to the response that might be something that you can control, and actually does have an impact on parents, because you don't want to put us in a place where we're going to galvanize our thinking. I'm slower than most, and I have to think about things for a while. And after the shock wears off, or after the first understanding kind of grows, you lay awake at night thinking about it, and your thought processes go through a series of Q&As. You start to think about things. You start putting things in perspective, and my son, in our case, gave me room to be able to think and to be able to process something. Again, he was much further along than I was, and gratefully for me, he gave me time to be able to process, and so that we didn't define the whole relationship by the first reaction. Now, I'm not saying that I had a bad reaction, but because I didn't. But if it is if that first reaction is bad, then I think sometimes you just have to give it time, because it takes a while to think. These are hard issues, very close to the heart. And as Heather said, as parents, you really have a view of how your children are going to be. I mean, you spend your whole life building a life for them like you would like it to be. It's kind of a rude awakening when they choose another path. And they always do, by the way, every time.
Yeah, plans are dangerous. That's really true. May I just say something that I kind of hear coming in and out of here in a subtle way, is that having a good relationship with people is really important. All people, and especially the people that are close to us. The more positive our relationship is with people, the easier it is to take whatever news comes our way from these friends or family members. So it's important for us to be kind. It's important for us to be loving. If we're parents, it's important for us to be loving parents and to feel like our kids can trust that we do love them and that we can take the good news and the bad news together. So, and with friends, the same thing. With children, the same thing. If it's a parent hearing from a child, the strength of that relationship can carry us through a lot. But as in all things, if the relationship isn't that strong, our reaction to this kind of news can strengthen the relationship or damage it further. So there are a lot of different opportunities that God gives us to grow, aren't there, in all sorts of ways. I'd like to hear you respond to, and we're running out of time rather quickly, so I want to just toss a couple of ideas to this panel before we get to the question and answer session. I'd like to talk about the difference between judgment and condemnation. I'd like you to think for a minute about those concepts. I think we live in a culture where we're a little bit timid about making judgments at all, and although our language maybe is responsible for those misperceptions, the fact is we really can't use our agency without making judgments. We need to make judgments to choose, right? But condemnations are not our territory. Elder Oaks gave a beautiful speech called Judge Not and Judging, in which he talked about the difference between making intermediate judgments and final judgments or condemnations. And of course, final judgments are the Lord's, and they're really none of our business. But intermediate judgments need to be made occasionally. Shall I or shall I not? That's a judgment. How do I respond to people? That's a judgment. What do you think about the kinds of judgments you've either experienced or that you've made, or how that differs from condemnation? Is this a topic that resonates with anyone?
I'll go first. I think it's really, really important because those of us like myself who experience same-sex attraction, I imagine it would be the same in a little different way for others. We've heard, I think, the story of the crabs in the bucket, where the crab tries to get out of the bucket and the other crabs pull it down. Once I got clear about what I wanted and the direction I wanted to go in my life, it was really important to me that I surround myself with people who supported that. I can't emphasize enough how important that is. That doesn't mean you shouldn't affiliate with people making other choices. But the people closest to me, the people most important to me, the people I was around the most, had to support my decisions, or I wouldn't have made it. And so I could have, and sometimes people will say, oh, but you're supposed to love everybody, and you're supposed to accept everybody. And we are, but we aren't supposed to necessarily let everybody in that close if they're gonna negatively impact us. And I think that would be true for parents. If there's people that aren't supporting parents in their own difficulties, or spouses, if my wife had people before we got married that say, oh, it's too bad your husband's going to go be gay, and you'd be a fool to marry him, and what woman, why would you want to put up with something like that? Well, she didn't need those kinds of voices in her life. She needed to make an important decision, and she needed to ask some hard questions, no doubt about it, but that was just negativity that she didn't need. So, and I had similar friends who are like, well, isn't this going to be too hard? And what are you going to do when this or this happens? And it was just so much negativity, I couldn't be around it. We don't want to have rose-colored glasses, but we don't want to have that negativity.
So you've made judgments about who you surround yourself with,
exactly.
and who you associate most closely with that supports the direction you want to go.
Exactly.
I like that. Lisa?
Lily, I think what you're referring to is that we all have to make judgments about what it means to have a healthy spiritual life. If we forego judgment, then we're ridiculous. We don't fall on one side of the line or anywhere. And I think when people object to judgment, what they object to is our judging without additional information that maybe we don't have. When I object to someone's judgment, I'm objecting to their not knowing something maybe that I know that contributes. One of the ironies on the topic of what supports and what doesn't comes out of research that Caitlin Ryan has done at the University of San Francisco, I believe, which tells us partly what we already know, which is that patience, kindness, love, those kinds of things are what's necessary here. Those are rather intuitive, even though they're difficult. But the parts that are not intuitive, that have to do with support, are things like behaviors that we might engage in to protect people from their same-sex attractions actually have the result of making it more likely that they will die, have a sexually transmitted disease, or be involved in substance abuse. That is, behaviors that we do that we think are supportive, for example, telling our young people, don't look on the internet about what it means to be gay, don't bring your gay friends to our home, and let's not talk about what it means to be gay in front of your brothers and sisters. Those kinds of behaviors actually are not supportive of that person's mental health. And so that's kind of an irony. That may not be intuitive. It may seem like we're actually helping when we're not.
Interesting. President Mackley, what do you think about this?
Boy, my heart's full. Volumes to be spoken and to be learned. But I think if I were to suggest that, let me share something with you that Elder Marlon Jensen taught us in our recent fireside. He said a text without a context is only a pretext. And as I think of the context of this conference today, think about that.
Say it again. That's really good. A text without a context is just a pretext.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so in this context today, as we're here striving to keep covenants, that's why we're here. I reflect on the prophet in the Book of Mormon as they were around the waters of Mormon. And let me see if I can just quote this, because I haven't received much inspiration, but I think the Lord would like us to consider this in the context of why we're here, striving to keep covenants. There's power in that. And it came to pass that he said unto them, behold, here we are at the waters of Mormon, for thus they were called. And now as ye are desirous to come into the fold of God, and to be called his people, and are willing to bear one another's burdens, that they may be light. And that might be, are we a member of a ward, or of a family, or of a quorum? We're desirous to come into the fold of God, to be ministered to, and to be shepherded with love. Are we willing to bear one another's burdens, that they may be light? I think that's why we're here today. Yea, are you willing to mourn with those that mourn, comfort those that stand in need of comfort, and to stand as a witness of God at all times and in all things and in all places that you may be in, even until death, that you may be redeemed of God and be numbered with those of the first resurrection, that you may have eternal life. And if this is the desire of your heart, he said, what have you against being baptized and receiving the gift of the Holy Ghost and having the Lord's Spirit poured out more abundantly upon you? And so I come to that conclusion. What we seek is the Spirit of the Lord to be with us. In a family relationship, if we're a functional family or a dysfunctional family or anywhere in between, the Spirit of the Lord unites. A marriage, a relationship, a nation, a community, a business, you name it, the Spirit of the Lord has a uniting effect. So as we strive to keep our covenants and have the Spirit of the Lord to be with us, it's kind of like this sister that shared her experience with the sister, the bishopric member's wife, who had an impression in the middle of the night to call upon her. The Spirit of the Lord was working its effect and its magic on someone who was acting as an instrument to bless your life. Maybe your family wasn't quite there yet in their functionality. You know, I think we all deal with pride and the delusion that comes from fear and anger and hatred and confuses things. But when we see things as they really are, the Spirit of the Lord illuminates that. And so I think our striving is to have the Holy Ghost be with us in all these different relationships. And so as your counseling becomes effective, what you're really saying, I think, to me is, wherever and whenever the Spirit of the Lord is with us, the Holy Ghost is with us, it seems like solutions will come, resources will be made available. And so if I were your stake president today, I would bless you with the power of the priesthood. I would invite the Lord and His Spirit to be with you and to watch over you. And in the context of where we're meeting today, you're entitled to that. You've earned that right, that privilege, because we're striving to keep our covenants when we're here today. Power is there, it's available. Resources will come if we're patient and we hold fast onto faith. The Lord will meet. He'll succor us. He'll come running. He'll provide miraculous means. It's grace, it's divine intervention. It's through a counselor, it's through a loving friend, it's through a priesthood leader, it's through a parent, a brother and a sister, a core member, through you all. It's interesting how that works. And so I just testify, I guess, as I consider these things, that never underestimate the power of the covenants that we make, because that's where power comes from. Never underestimate the power of prophets. Because if I went back and read 15 years ago what they were teaching, I wasn't focused on that for 15 years as a bishop back in the day. And yet I loved my ward member who struggled. He said he was gay. He was struggling with addictions. I had no idea what to do for that brother. But yet, because I loved him, boy, it became, as I look back on it, I referred to that document, and it wasn't even printed yet. President Hinckley, I think, talked about, I don't know the meaning of all things, but I know this, that God loveth His children. I remember saying that to this brother as I saw him there in church with a white shirt and tie on, knowing just a little bit about his background. I walked up to him and just invited him, was so glad that he was there, and I felt to say, Mike, I don't know everything, but this much I do know, that God loveth His children. That's been my testimony in the last 4 years as a bishop. Now looking back on it, I'm thinking, that wasn't my words. Those weren't my words. It was the Spirit that was a part of that process, because love was the foundation. And so I think in all of our relationships, that's what brings revelation and inspiration, is it's true love, not conditional love. I think I better not talk anymore. There's a whole bunch of things that we could say.
Thank you. Justin's going to make a comment, but before he does, let me just make sure that you take a look up here, and if you would like to send in a question to this panel, please text that number, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. We're now into the question and answer portion of that, and then again, before Justin talks, I just want to let you know that after the first quarter, it's BYU 28, Idaho State 3, just in case you're interested. So, Justin.
Well, that was far more important than what I'm about to say.
I thought they might want to know.
So, one thing that I keep thinking about, Elder Bednar, he talks about, he challenges all of us to be agents and not objects. And when I think about judgment and condemnation, I think about me personally. If I judge or if I condemn, if I make a judgment to me, that can lead me to be an agent to take action. I'm going to judge something of myself that I need to do to take action. Whereas if I'm just condemning, then I'm more of an object. Like, that big jerk, that's condemning someone, and that leaves me in a powerless state as an object. But if I say, wow, this was a really terrible thing that happened, or this person, this was, they said something really mean, but this is what I'm going to do. I judge that I can act in this way to do something, then I'm an agent, and I'm not an object, and I have some power in that, in the action that I can take.
I like that, and I appreciate that, because I do think that sometimes in all of our journeys, we get hurt. There are a lot of hurtful people out there. It's a dangerous planet some days. And I think we do need to make a judgment, which isn't a final condemnation. We don't know enough to make final judgments, but we can say, like you were saying, that was a hurtful thing that person did, or that person was not helpful to me, or they maybe really did some damage. And to be able to acknowledge that allows me to move past it, to be an agent and say, that wasn't well done, but I'm not going to let it own me forever. I think that's a very powerful way that judgment can help us when we're recovering from things that have hurt us. I want to ask this question.
I'm sorry. You know what? I was actually supposed to put a plug in that Kayla wanted to say something after me, but I forgot.
Kayla,
May I, Lily?
Yes.
I'll be brief.
You bet.
I was just thinking, when it comes to making a righteous judgment, because an unrighteous judgment is probably just a condemnation, right? And you're worried about distancing yourself from people that you care about or love. Because you do. You have compassion towards them, even though they might not be the right person in your life at that time. I testify, you will have more of an influence in that person's life. You will be a better example. You will impact them even greater if you make a boundary and follow it. I promise that. And even if you never know that you had that impact, but if you stay around and you entertain their thoughts and ideas just because you want to be nice, even though they're unhealthy for you, that's not helping them. Them watching you do something that's important to you, that you believe is right, with full integrity, impacts their life, even if it's from a distance. It's nothing you say directly. It's something they watch and observe. And so, yeah, I've had to distance myself from a lot of friends, like an entire social group. And it was really, really hard. But I know that things have made an impact, and I've seen other people who've come back to the church, and I'm not saying that's because of me, but I'm saying that they're watching people do this. They're gaining hope and strength by it. They don't need someone holding their hand along that shouldn't be there, but they're watching people with strength go forward and do things, and then they want to do it too. And so by making a boundary and following it and following those judgments that we believe to be righteous, you'll have a good impact on those around you that you care about. And if you really care about them, then that's what's most important to you anyways.
Thank you so much. And along with what Jeff was saying before, Matt, you look like you have something on your mind.
I want to just follow up with that. And really, if you're doing anything with love, that person's going to feel it. There's no right or wrong thing to say, it seems. I remember all of us that deal with this know what it's like to tell somebody, for the first time, and there's so much fear and anxiety. And I remember calling my brother up. I was on a business trip, and I called him up, and him and his wife were on the phone, and it's like just dragging on, and I'm trying to figure out what to say and how to say it, and I finally told him, and his words were, "Well, you're still a dork." And, it changed the whole tenor of everything, and it just, and anybody that's been over at my house, my roommates joke about it all the time, and it's nice to, this is a serious thing, but it's not something that we have to dwell on all the time and just make it like it's this, cross to bear that, we're going to be crushed under. You can realize that life is still great. So.
That's great. There are some good questions coming in. Let's look at a few of them. I struggle with feeling love for myself. I feel that sometimes I almost don't deserve others' love because of my attractions. What can I do to get past that? Who wants to start?
My friend Blake, your question again was how to get past the hurt feelings, right?
Yeah, that's that feeling that you don't deserve love.
You don't deserve love. Oh gosh, I just remember how eloquently my friend Dale Larson talked about that at a fireside I was at of his. I think you were probably there too. We have to get that, I think, if we can't get it from those around us, we get it from God, and we can ask Heavenly Father, you know, why am I here, and what is your plan for my life? Is it to be this meaningless person? And I think God will show us what we really are and what He's destined us to be, and that can be really an incredible turning point. And then when people say things, my friend Blake sent me this the other day, where he suffered. He was also divorced, Matt, and his wife spread all kinds of awful things about him, none of which were even true. And he got really shunned by the ward. And he remembered, you know, in that case, it's really hard to not get dragged down and not to take on those messages. And he said, I finally learned to thank them as my teacher. So anytime they'd refuse to take the sacrament from me when I was passing the sacrament, or they would refuse to talk to me, or they'd say things about me over the pulpit, I would just say to them, thank you, my teacher. Thank you for teaching me love. And, you know, I had a similar situation where I was feeling envy over some people who I thought were also taking advantage of me. And I thought, you know, they seemed to have a lot more than I did. And I thought, the Spirit helped me to see that however poor I feel, I'm not poor enough that I need to be cruel or hurtful or dishonest. I'm not that well off. I'm not that poor. I'm not that badly off. Thank you, Lord, for taking care of me enough that I don't need to be like that person's being to me.
Thank you, Dirk. And let me jump in and say, too, that this is a universal. You know, many people struggle with feelings of being worthy of love. No matter what their problem may be, that's often a struggle that people have. And as you say, our Heavenly Father has made this a matter of doctrine that that the worth of each soul is great, and we are worthy of love. And if that's a problem that we have, maybe we do need to start reaching through the Scriptures, through prayer, and through those around us to help us recognize how we're loved by God. And once we're loved by God, it's easy to love ourselves because we appreciate His opinion about us. What were you going to say, Justin?
I just wanted to speak from the perspective of a friend or family member or a priesthood leader. I think someone that is feeling that they're unlovable or that they can't be loved. I think oftentimes when we try to extend love, that it may be difficult to receive at times. And I think oftentimes as a mother or father or friend or family member, the reaction might be, well, you know, they don't want the love, so I'm going to stop trying. And I think as friends, family members, church leaders, it's our duty to always leave the door open. That no matter what, if someone's not in a place where they want to receive that love from us, we must leave the door open. We must make it very clear that we're open and available to love and to give and to be with that person when they are ready for that.
Thank you. Danny?
Yeah, I just think that whole idea of you know, disliking yourself and I'm not loved. So much when we have these feelings of same-sex attraction, we don't understand them. We're scared of them, and a lot of shame comes up. You know, things we read and things we've heard people say, and we know that the church doesn't support homosexual behavior. So we start thinking, I'm bad, I'm wrong. And that idea of shame just destroys us. And I think the best way out of shame just thrives in secrecy and isolation. And the best way to relieve ourselves of shame is stop hiding. You don't need to be alone through your struggles. In my experience, as I started talking about it and I started reaching out to people, I was able to let go of some of that shame, and I started to understand what was really going on inside of me. And because of that, what some people call a trial, it's become a great blessing in my life and in my marriage. I'm a stronger person because of this trial. I'm closer to God because of this experience, and that's come by getting rid of that shame and stopped, got rid of those feelings of self-hate and self-doubt and self-loathing.
Here's a question. Can one react too enthusiastically to a friend's telling them that they're gay? In other words, can people be a little overboard in enthusiasm about trying to be supportive and maybe go too far? What do you think about that? So what do you think, Lisa?
We know that coming out for young people is associated with better mental health. That is, if they, when they hide it, they do worse cognitively, they do worse emotionally, they do worse socially. And as we heard this morning, there may come a time when not identifying as gay or lesbian or bisexual is an appropriate step. But for our young people, it seems to be a very important step. Those who do so do better. So in some ways, it is worth celebrating that they have accomplished that they are able to come to the last question about not loving oneself. The first thing my mind goes to as a therapist is the support group for this person. Are there people who know him or her in his or her core and who validate and who are connected? And if we hide that we're gay or lesbian, then we never have that. And then we always suspect that we are not lovable. So I think coming out is, yes, a cause for celebration for that very reason.
Tyler?
Interesting how that last question dovetails into this question. For me, when I first started coming out, to use that phrase, I finally started to like who I was, and for the longest time, I didn't like who I was, and I didn't take love from anybody, and I was much like whoever asked that question. I didn't feel worthy of that love. I was trying to earn that love. But even if I had achieved that magical bullet that I was looking for to earn that love, I wouldn't have been able to accept it because I hadn't shown them any part of who I was. Well, in my judgment, I hadn't. So when I first started coming out, I started to like myself, and I, for a while, adopted the identity of a gay man. And when Linnell and I decided to make our marriage work, I said, well, yeah, I'm here to make our marriage work, but you have to accept you're married to a gay man. And that was only not even a quarter of the path, coming down the path. There was that time where that's an identity that I adopted, but that doesn't serve me anymore. There's so much more, and now it's not about trying to earn love. Any perfectionists out there trying to earn that love? No? And now I can accept that people love me. I have a 6-week baby out there somewhere, I hope. He's not done anything to earn the love of his parents, but it's absolutely there. And the same goes for all of us. Whether you're 6 weeks, 16, or 36, love is there. It's not earned.
Thank you, Tyler. I want to mention, I think what this other question had to do with is it's something that I heard not long ago about a person in a ward, a gentleman who was in his 30s, never married, active member of the church, serving in church callings, who came out on Facebook about his same-gender feelings. And some of the ward members that were friends on Facebook, he felt went a little too far, and they were like, that's great, we're so excited for you, and way to go, and you just tear it up out there or whatever, and he had left the church for a while, but when he came back, he said that made it harder, because it was almost like all these people were sort of telling him, you need to be this way, and you're a certain way now, and he said that almost stood in the way of my of my feeling like they understood, but I had choices about what I wanted to do. Does that make sense? Sister Nelson.
I was just thinking earlier this week about charity. And one of the things that it talks about charity is that it rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. And I think as parents, it's been important to us to be really clear. And I know this came up this morning. We don't have to harp on it all the time. But I think it's important to us for our son to know where we stand. And it's important to us that we keep our foundation as strong as we can, so that no matter how shifty the ground he might be standing on, there's a bridge back, and there's a safe place to come, and that's been really important to us.
And then, as we've said, the language is so important because it's not the feelings that are iniquity. That's not an iniquity, that's just an experience. So it's very, very important how we say things, it seems to me. Sometimes we need to be really careful about how we express, but I love what was said. I think it was Matt, you said this, that if the love is there, it almost doesn't matter what's said. The love is going to communicate itself, like your brother who called you a dork. That was like, hey, we're the same as we've always been. And the love was always there. That was a beautiful story. A couple of other questions. We actually have a specific question for the stake president, but I would also like the other members of the panel to think about your response to this in terms of official church policies and so on. Let's see if I can find this one. To the stake president, my stake presidency teaches in terms of scare tactics. Is this right? How can I help my stake president have more compassion?
That's a very good question, because I've thought about the various levels of priesthood leaders in their development of discipleship, because we don't campaign for the job, we don't get paid in a check at the end of the month, we're not quite professional, and yet what we do have typically is a testimony of the Savior and the atonement, but we're all at different stages. And so I was going to suggest, before the question was even asked, that if any of you have a bishop or a stake president that you're not quite sure how to approach, pray about it, seek revelation, and when the time is ripe and right, you'll know it. And how you should approach that, it'll be revealed to you. In that interview, and that's what I was going to suggest in this last discussion, be wise in what you share publicly about your challenge of same-gender, same-sex attraction. Be wise, because you want to be sure that the intended outcome happens and not the unintended consequence. The world is so confused now about these issues. Be wise in what you share when you come out, when you confess, when you do whatever. And so I think if you go to your bishop or your stake president in the spirit of revelation and you have an interaction with them, I think you'll be guided to know how to interact with that priesthood leader in such a way that you become edified together, that you understand where to go next. And it may not be the same. In fact, it probably won't be the same with each person and each interaction with each priesthood leader. You may have to be extremely patient. In some cases, they'll be ready and they'll be right there with you. In other cases, it might be an unexpected shock effect, and they'll tell you the very same things that we heard here today, that you should just not think about it and you should just let it go away, put your head in the sand like an ostrich. I mean, what I understand about spiritual principles is that when we see things as they really are, according to the Book of Mormon, the Spirit of the Lord teaches us things as they really are, past, present, and future. Back to this context thing. This is a mortal experience. We're in it for the eternities. So when the Spirit is with us and we know how to interact with the priesthood leader, we're going to probably get what the Lord desires for us right now. He's aware of all these factors that are going on, and it's an act of faith, really. But I think, I'm happy to share our experience, and it may not be quite the same as that priesthood leader's experience, but profamily2004@hotmail.com. If they want to talk to us, call me on my cell phone. We can share our experience, but ultimately that priesthood leader will have to deal with it with you, with faith, and with the Spirit sustaining what you do. And throughout the church, it's going to be different. Throughout every ward and every stake. I've got a good friend in Portland, Oregon. That stake president, I think, is a wonderful minister to my friend in Portland, Oregon, and they're successful, but it's not what I would do in my stake, but yet it's working there in Portland, Oregon, given all the interesting uniqueness of that stake and that brother. And so I got a little bit distracted there. Sorry about that.
Well, I appreciate it. May I jump in to say that I hope we all have learned to separate church leaders and church members from the gospel of Jesus Christ and the kingdom of God. You know, we're made up of imperfect people in any organization, and although, as you say, I think our priesthood leaders have testimonies, they may not be very familiar with certain subjects, and if you have a bad experience with a priesthood leader, talk to a different priesthood leader, and keep talking to different priesthood leaders, because you'll find one. You'll find lots of them who really care, and even if they need to learn, they'll learn, and they'll show you the love that you're looking for that this stake president has shown to his people. Yes, Tyler?
Lily, I'm really excited about this question. 2 years ago, General Conference in Priesthood, the Spirit said, Tyler, you need to go talk to your stake president. And my response was, I haven't done anything wrong. And it wasn't about me. For once in my life, it wasn't about me. I went and said, President, I won't use the name, but I said, President, I deal with this issue. I'm okay. I'm not here to confess. But here's my experience, and I would like to I'd like to, if there's anything I can do to help, whether that be a training or whatever else, I would love to be a part of that. And he said, well, Tyler, I appreciate that, but fortunately, we don't really see a lot of that in this area.
Ouch.
I held my tongue, and I said, you know what? I did my part. I did what the Spirit asked me to do. A couple months later, I got a call from a bishop. One of his priests in his ward came to him. The bishop went to the stake president. The stake president said, call this guy. And I've been able to help that youth, and it's been awesome. And a year later, giving the Spirit time to work with my stake president, we had a training session with the stake presidency, all the bishoprics in the stake, and the Stake Relief Society presidency to be able to get resources out, to be able to say, here's some ways to respond and not to respond. Think about the difference of your stake president, and maybe asking this stake president, if your first experience is someone coming in saying, I've dealt with this issue, here's what I've done, here's how I'm doing today, versus I'm dealing with this issue and I don't know what to do besides jump.
What a gift to give your priesthood
I think that would help our
entire
leaders,
stake.
exactly, and
wonderful
for all of those going forward who come to that bishop and that leadership.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
And I'm just remembering, Tyler, I got to meet that bishop, as you know, of that young priest, and how much love I saw from him. It just warmed my heart. As much as we can talk about the difficulties, there is so much love out there. People, priesthood leaders that I've heard about and seen go way beyond the call, way beyond, and really are emulating the Savior. If I can make a couple points on this too, when the Doctrine and Covenants was introducing Joseph Smith, it said, in his words you shall take as if my own mouth, in all patience and faith. The Lord knew from the start that our priesthood leaders would try our patience and try our faith. So we can pray for that. The second point I'd make is priesthood leaders are often coming from a point of problems. I remember when I've talked to my priesthood leaders and they'd check me off. Oh, he's okay. And so some of the condemnation we may feel, you know, you don't have to look very hard to find hurtful comments made even by, you know, church leaders in the past and on this issue. If we look at it in two contexts, as Elder Jensen taught us, one, that often these people were dealing with the worst cases. Their experience of this was almost entirely negative. And the third point I'd make is that for 4,000 years, since Moses came off the mountain, God has had his idea of homosexuality was not something you were, but something you are. Not something you were, but it was just something that we did, or it was an action. It was an action. It was not a fundamental part of our character. And so if we read those statements in that light, because in the meantime the culture's moved. Now the culture says from the 1860s on is when it started and certainly became dominant in the 90s and 80s. This is now, homosexuality is something you are. Yeah. So all of a sudden, we in the culture are reading these condemnatory statements in the context of who we are, whereas they were never meant that way, in my opinion. They were meant to say, to refer to those actions
Behaviors.
and not a statement on us as people.
Very nicely divided. Thank you so much, Jeff. Here's a question that someone would like to ask. Here we go. Talk about the difference in intentions. Why should we share? Are there unhealthy reasons that we should avoid as we reach for support? Unhealthy reasons to share. Are there some things that shouldn't be shared, or people with whom we should not share? Danny.
I think, as I kind of spoke to that a little bit earlier, the importance of getting that shame out. I think you need to be careful with how you share that too. If this is the first time you've ever said anything to anyone, you probably don't want to announce it at church over the pulpit. Probably isn't the best context, the first exposure to talking about this. But start sharing with someone who's close to you. Start by talking to parents, a sibling, a best friend. Just start the dialogue, start talking about it. And I think once you start talking about it, you start to gain what it is I need from this. And that may be all that you ever want to share it with. But you may feel like you want to expand that and start sharing with more people. Many people have been on the panels and such have done a Voices of Hope video. They've shared that with a lot of people, and that's been very healing for a lot of them. But that's not for everybody, and I think you just need to start sharing with somebody close to you and just follow what it is you feel like you need and get that need met. And as you do that, you may feel like you need more, and just follow what you feel. You're the best judge to what it is you need for your healing.